champions are broken. We're like, huh. It's like people look at champions and try and find something that champion has that they don't have. He's like, but it's not that at all. He's like, they lack something everyone else has, which is an off button. They just don't stop. And at the end of the day, like, if we're optimizing for outcomes, then the most broken person will win. The person who has the absolute biggest, desire for achievement, the absolute biggest fear or pain that they're running away from, and the hardest impulse control. If you had to create a human, what would you put them through to make them tough? It probably wouldn't be a really chill life. What would you put them through to make them patient? You probably wouldn't even use immediately. And so it's like we want these traits, but each of the traits has a price tag attached to it. It's just like, do you want to pay the price tag to get the thing? And so I think if people reframe the period of life that they're going through as the price that they're paying out of their wallet, but their wallet is their time, seconds of life that they're trading for it, then I think more people would be willing to make the trade. Because at least when I look at myself, like when I'm 80-something years old and looking back at my life, I want to have these traits. But in order to have those traits, I know I have to go through these things. And I think for me, that's given me a lot of comfort in hard times. Every single person who wants to do something with their life and has done something with their life has gone through the exact chapter that you're going through. And it's the lonely chapter. It's the chapter where you don't fit in with your own friends, but you don't have the outcomes yet to fit into a new group of friends. And you're going through this and you're like, is this even worth it? Because you have no signs of success, right? But if there's anything that you can take away from what we're saying right now, is that the sign of success is the hate that you get along the way. And what you can't do is bend the knee to their hate and fit back into the conformity because it's comfortable and it's warm. Because like in the Matrix, when Trinity opens the door, when Neo's about to go take the red pill and he wants to get out of the car, she says, Neo, you've been down that road and you know exactly where it leads. And I know that's not where you want to be. People only root for people who don't need it. Like the amount of times when I was on my lonely path where I was too different from the friends that I had, but not successful enough to be friends with the people that I wanted to be friends with. That's when you want people to root for you. That's when you want people to support you. Once you've already won, people are like, he's amazing, he's so good. But like, that's the time when you need it the least. And so you always have to be the person who roots for you before everyone else does. And it's usually a single clap in the auditorium for a very long period of time. It is a slow clap that's just you rooting for you. And the path of the exceptional person is one of an exception, which means that you are not with other people. And rather than fighting that or bemoaning it, see it as an indicator that you're on the right path. Because if everyone else were cheering you on, then it means you're not in the right place, because it means you're just like everyone else, and that's not where you want to be. How do you, quote, stand out when everyone's loud? And this is going to sound trite, but your fingerprint is unique, literally from a biological perspective, but so is your life and your experiences. And so there's real alpha or benefit to be had above normal level of effort by leaning into you. And so what makes every person unique is what makes their content unique. And so trying to be like, oh, I want to make content like Alex is probably not the best way to do it, because you're not going to beat me at being me, but you'll beat me at being you. And so it's basically your flavor of media. So like for me, it's like, what is, my brand to model this? It's like, well, I have elements of philosophy that are in my brand. Well, do I need that? No, but that's like kind of me. I obviously talk a ton about business, marketing and sales, promotion, conversion. Those are all things that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and so a lot of my content's about that. Fitness is a component of my life, and so there's light sprinkling of fitness in my content. Also, I come from a background of fitness with Gym Launch and the companies that I owned before that, and so that would make sense that, and my wife Layla, so that's sprinkled in, and so like those are basically the components of my life. And so that's what kind of shines through in my content. I consume a ton of comedy, and so sometimes you'll see some dry humor and dark humor that shines through. But that's me. Now you have all of those little buckets of you, and not only are those buckets unique, but also the proportions of those buckets will be different. And so maybe your philosophy is way bigger, or maybe Fitness Bar is way bigger. But I think what makes the truly unique personal trainer fitness brand is leaning into people being interested in you for being you. And then being like, by the way, I have fitness stuff if you want to buy it from me. And I think the key part is the vast majority of products and services are commoditized. You're probably not going to be significantly better than other trainers. Just being real, you probably are. But you will be different than them. And we want to lean on, I want to buy fitness from somebody, and so I might as well buy it from her, or I might as well buy it from him. So you're taking basically the audience that would buy from anyone, but your brand premium gets them to want to buy it from you. Most people's definition of work is a negative one, which is why they abhor it, which is also why they misunderstand so many people who quote, I'll say quote here, are successful or ahead of them or whatever, is that both people, one person says the word work and the other person hears the word pain. And so the first step to like becoming more successful is understanding the language that the people who are successful are using. They're actually defining the word differently. And so whatever that thing is that you actually enjoy doing, where you lose track of time when you're in it, even if it's challenging, but usually it is challenging, right? Like it's not easy because then it's boring, right? Which is also why the uncertainty thing is so key, right? To not knowing if it's gonna work or not. You are gonna work though either way. Is that the people who are quote addicted to work make it easy to be addicted to work because they do things worth doing. And I think a lot of it is coming down to making sure that you take the few precious seconds that we have to do the few things that are worth doing for the rest of your life. Business ideas typically come from one of three P's. So it comes from a pain that you're currently experiencing, a past profession, so the thing that you just quit or some of the jobs that you just quit, or passion. So something that you're inherently interested in that you would spend your time doing anyways, some skill that you learned while you were in the workforce, which by the way is one of the most proven ways of making money because the economy has already showed you that people are willing to exchange money for that specific job. And so in the world of gig economies and solopreneurs, every business can be dismantled into just jobs being done, and all of those jobs can be fractionalized. So anybody, like, we look at any business, you've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got customer success, you've got customer support if you want to differentiate that, you've got product, you've got design, you've got web pages, there's so many different components to a business, you just need to learn one of them. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, boom, you have a skill that you can trade for money that you don't have anybody else to report to. And then pain is usually, I think, in some ways, sometimes one of the biggest drivers is like you had an eating allergy and you couldn't find pancakes that dealt with your specific eating allergy. And you bet that there's a decent amount of other people with that allergy that also like pancakes. And so then you make pancakes that are delicious and amazing that also cater to people with that food allergy. And then all of a sudden, like, you have a business based on pain.
And why does that matter?
What the pain part? I think that deep knowledge of the prospect is paramount or very important for creating exceptional products. And you can either do that by doing a ton of research or by being the prospect. And there's a certain amount of like visceral feel that you'll know. Like if someone wants to make a nose product for breathing, I have tried every product since I was in 8th grade. So it's been 20 plus years, 30, whatever, a lot of years, that since then, and I've tried everything. And so I know the pros and cons of every product that exists on the market. It's not like, oh, I tried it for a day. It's like, I'll try things for a month at a time. And so I have so much time exposure to this problem that I have a lot of nuance in my opinion on what's wrong with the solutions, so I can formulate a way better hypothesis on how to fix it. What's wild about the fear that people have when they're starting out is that they say things like, I have nothing going for me, I have no advantages, I have nothing to my name, I have no money, I have no network, I have no resources. But using Rory Sutherland's reframing, it also means that you have nothing to lose, which makes you incredibly dangerous. And I think people wildly underestimate how many shots on goal you can take when you have nothing to lose. Whereas when someone has something to lose, they have to be more and more selective about the shots they take. And so you have the perfect conditions for taking risk because the worst case scenario is baseline, is where you're currently at. Yeah. And so that
your
means,
downside is this.
Which means that it's like going to the casino and playing craps, but they say that you can just keep playing until you win. But people are afraid to roll. So a very close friend of mine did all the Olympic teams, nutrition and supplementation stuff for a country overseas. And he said, you know the difference between champions and everyone else? And I was like, what? He said, everyone always looks at them and says, what do champions have that I don't have? And he said, they have it backwards. He said, it's what do champions not have that I have? It's what do they lack? And it's an off button. And so in dealing with the gold medalists, he's like, they just never stop. They just can't stop. Everything in their life is geared towards one goal. And so finding that thing, and they approach everything in their life that way. And I think that that level of obsession around like everything that you touch on a daily basis is required for really getting to where you want to go. I think one of the major plights of humanity, myself included, is the expectation that life should be different than it is. And so we create this idea that whatever we have right now is not what it should be. And I think should is the root of all pain. Is that all the things that we think should happen but aren't is basically the measurement of our pain. And so I've tried to eradicate should from my life. Should for other people, she should do this, they should do that. And just lean into is. It just is this way. I work, period. Not I should work more, I should work less, or I should work differently, or I should see my mom more, I should call my dad more. I do this. And if something changes, I will change. And so unconditional shoulds. Now, if there's a condition of like, if you want to make more money, then this is a higher likelihood. You might want to consider doing this. Those are things that I don't consider in that category, but just the generalized shoulds of he shouldn't do that. He should build a family. He should have kids. He should have gotten married earlier. He should have gotten later. He should have married someone different. He shouldn't have the life that he has. He shouldn't work this way. According to what? And so for me, that is my theory on life, on happiness, work, and love has been very unified, because I love my work so much that I got out of a relationship, and when I started dating Layla, I said, I am not willing to change this. And so you have to be willing to deal with me working this way, or this won't work, because my relationship with my work is the most satisfying relationship I have. Now people will hear that and be like, well, that's because he's never experienced true love, or whatever narrative they'll say. But it's like, you haven't lived my life and I haven't lived yours, and I don't project anything onto you. But I love what I do. And I get attacked for liking what I do so much. And I like working a lot, and it's because they have negative associations with the word, and that's their own history of their experience with the word. But I see my goals and my relationship with my goals as one of the most sacred things that I have, because I see them as a relationship with myself. People have a hard time just saying no to things. And I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, like, try actually telling the truth when you don't want to do something. Because we have so many social niceties that we say, oh, I'm really busy, or it's a really bad time right now, or whatever. I had somebody the other day, I was with a friend, and I didn't notice that I did this, so sometimes it's nice to have somebody from the outside. And so somebody came up to me, we were looking at a real estate property, and someone knew I was going to be there and said, that guy showed up unannounced or whatever. And he was like, hey man, can we do a podcast? And I was like, I'm just in town, going to hang out with Layla for the next few days, like, not really trying to do that. Then he asked again, and he was like, hey, maybe like 20 minutes, we can just rock one out. And I was like, well, let me show you my calendar. And I pulled up my calendar, and it was all empty. And I said, see, there's nothing on there. And I was like, and I just want to keep it that way. And I didn't think anything of it. But apparently he left, and then my friend just starts crying, laughing, just thinking how hilarious. He was like, I can't believe you said that. That was so boss, blah, blah. And I was like, what is he talking about? He's like, you just showed in your calendar that you had nothing, and you were still like, you're still not going to get any of my time. And I didn't perceive any of this extra narrative that he added to it. But I think just being able to say no to stuff when people ask you for it, because people ask you for stuff all the time. It's these little nibs, these little tiny things. Hey, can you do this? Or hey, can we show up to this thing? Or hey, you're supposed to. Or hey, your aunt did that one thing for you, so therefore you owe her. And saying like, I don't subject myself to those rules. And I had a New Year's resolution, which I do believe in making resolutions. Like, why not? If you stick with them. And so one of my more recent ones was there are no such thing as social obligations, only consequences. Being really clear on what you want is important. So if you're like, I want to be the richest person in the world, I think it's a terrible goal, but if you want that, great. Well, you have to have a multi-trillion-dollar idea, because by the time that occurs, there's already multi-trillion-dollar companies now. So you got to be looking at like decatrillion-dollar opportunity. And so, believe it or not, basically the bigger the goal, the narrower the scope of the paths to get there. If you're like, I want to make $10 million, I'm like, you can literally do that in almost any business. Mm-hmm. You want to make $100 million, probably still almost any business you can do it. On a long enough time horizon, you can do it. a trillion or decatrillion, it's going to be some sort of tech. It's probably going to have some sort of AI. And so you get, basically, the bigger the goal is, the narrower the scope of how to get there. But the vast majority of people are like, I want to be the richest man in the world, just because they don't know how to like really think through it and be like, all right, well, after like 100, there's really nothing you can't do, except buy more big things. But like in terms of your actual consumption, maybe even 20 is like, you can only eat at restaurants that go so expensive. You can only stay at the best hotels. You can only drive the nicest cars. You can do that with about 25 million. I look at Warren Buffett as somebody, and Charlie Munger as two of my heroes. Charlie worked until the day he died. And to be clear, I don't work on a 7-day calendar. I don't work a certain hour. I work as much as I can until I feel like my rate of output drops precipitously because of fatigue, and then I sleep. And then if I feel like on a longer time horizon of like, I've worked 9 days, I've worked 20 days, I've worked 30 days in a row, and I'm like, all right, I feel like I don't have any gas today, then I'll take the whole day off. And whether that's a Tuesday or a Sunday or a Saturday, I take the day off, and that just is what it is. I have learned to work that way, and I'm okay with it.
The goal clearly for you then is the hard work itself and not a certain place you're trying to get to necessarily.
Because that always moves.
Yeah.
And so Jesse Itzler has this, and maybe I'll be able to steal it from him someday. But he told it, I saw him show a picture of his kid finishing a race and putting a 0 up. And what that signified was nothing left in the tank. That he'd spent everything he had on the field. And it's like, I have this visual of the 300 movie, where the queen says to the king, as he goes off the battle, she says, come back with your shield or on it. And I kind of see like my work that way. Like, I can't imagine a better way to go out than like doing the thing I love. If you think back to college, when you were a freshman, you think, wow, this is so hard or whatever. And then by the time you're a senior, you're like, man, these kids are so soft. And so we remember things as harder than they were. But I also think that there is a thread of reality, which is that the younger generation is softer. And I think we are softer than the generation above us. When I think about the guys who were storming Normandy, and I think about the people who would be attempting to do that now, as a class, I think that we are softer. And so the thing is that if you can barely decide to take any action at all and peel your eyes away from your phone for just a moment, it's so much easier to beat everyone else, because most people are overweight, they're distracted, they're poor, they have so few skills, because it has never been easier to start a business, to make money, to get in shape. It's just also never been easier to do nothing. And so in a world where it's never been easier to do nothing, doing something becomes extraordinary. I saw a salesman say this at a conference, and he wrote $1 million on a whiteboard. And he called up a lady in the audience, and he said, how much do you make? And she said $50,000 a year. So he wrote $50,000 underneath the million, and he subtracted it. And it said $950,000. He said, it costs you $950,000 every single year. You don't know how to make $1 million a year. And so the question is, what is the value of that skill? And the answer is the difference. And so the troll who responded to this originally was like, well, you can keep going. What about $100 million a year or $1 billion a year? And I was like, yes. If you had the skill of making $1 billion a year, then the difference between 50,000 and $1 billion is the delta of the value of that skill. And it's really not one skill. It's many skills that ladder up to, when combined together, to create that kind of value. But I remember that being like seared into my memory, which is like, whatever I want to have, the delta between where I'm at and where that thing is what basically what I'm willing to sacrifice in order to learn what I need to learn to get there. And I think that if people appraise that delta, not by the money in their wallet or the time that they currently have, but how much they would be making or how much time they would have and how much that's worth to them, then I think far more people would be willing to invest in their education. And it's such a taboo word because people hate the word education. It's like, oh, it's like work. But like, you want to be an entrepreneur, like, you got to learn. There's so much stuff to learn. If I ever had one thing that people took from me, it was like absolute freedom. And because of that absolute freedom, we are 100% responsible for our own lives. And so where we place the finger of blame is also where power flows. So if you blame your parents for your life, your parents have power over your life. If you blame your boss for your bad life, your boss has power over your life. If you blame you for your bad life, at least you can change you, and you can do something about it. And so I think absolute responsibility has been my core tenet. And if you have a life where you're like, I don't want to care about work that much, and I just want to spend all my time with my family, I'm like, congratulations, you won. That's amazing. Just don't assume that everyone's you. I know that my message won't resonate with everyone, and that's okay. But it's for the few people who were like me and felt like everyone told them there was something wrong with them, and I still get people to tell me there's something wrong with me. And if wrong means not normal, then yeah, you bet. But it's more so that like you are different, and that's okay. And I think that if you're okay with that, then it unleashes this whole new realm of possibility of being able to do what you want. The only thing that you can do is win so big that all of them constantly compare themselves to you, and then you'll forget they exist. Success is the only revenge. It's not the best revenge. It's the only one. There's no other revenge. Hard work is the goal. It's just to work hard.